Hey everyone, welcome to Broadband Deployment News. So the FCC National Broadband Map came out on Friday, and I showed a quick demo of that, and I missed something. There was something that was confusing me, and I missed some technology filters that are available on the map that will help people as they're looking at this. I'll be right back and show those. Thanks for joining me, Rick Husey here at Broadband Deployment News. So as I mentioned, I showed the new FCC map on Friday, and there were some things that were confusing me as far as the map, and it really is something. It was not a good decision on their part. So basically on the map, I don't know if it's on this national view, if it's set that way or not, because a lot of these areas that are white are going to be areas that are just not broadband serviceable. And as I look at the map, I can't really tell what I'm looking at from this perspective, zoomed way out like this. But the defaults on the map, when you go look for your address, it's defaulted to be all technologies, which means you might look up your address and it's showing as served, but it may be that you have only DSL service available and maybe satellite service. And it could be that that satellite service is delivering over 100 megabits per second. Specifically, let's say something like Starlink is flying over you. There's some constellations flying over you, and you can get over 100 by 20. But is that really served? And it's not from the perspective of the BEAD program and the Notice of Funding Opportunity, which I'll show you here in a second. So I want to take a look at the map again, show you where those filters are. I also wanted to again look at the FCC map compared to the New York map, which had some challenges in it. We know they had 30,000 challenges. And we'll look at one specific area that I looked at last time and look at just kind of compare the two again there. So first off, so this is the map. And again, if you go here, broadbandmap.fcc.gov will take you there, and you can type in your address. And everybody in the country should do this to check and see what you have and confirm, and you can challenge it. So if you go to the map and you look up your address and it says you're supposed to have service and you don't, you can challenge that. You can challenge speeds as well, but really broadband availability is important. Is there actually broadband service? Is your house one that's supposed to get broadband service? Then you can challenge speeds, although the real speed challenges that are going to be important in the early going are those that are kind of on the cusp of, is this area served or not? Which means, if you're in an area where you should be getting, they say you get gig internet, and you can do a speed test. If it says, wait, I'm not getting a gig, I'm getting 800 megabits per second, and it's not a gig, that challenge isn't going to be as interesting in the early going, maybe later on as we try to get those numbers more accurate. But in the early going, we're trying to figure out, okay, who's unserved? Who's 100 by 20 or less? That's really underserved. But let's say 25 by 3 and then 100 by 20 is underserved. So what we're looking at here, I went ahead like I did last time and I looked at the town of Benson because I had been looking at New York anyway earlier, a week or two before, because I was looking at the New York map because they had challenged so many locations. So I pulled up the town of Benson because it's one, if you look at the New York map, and I'll give you a quick look here, if you look at the New York map, they're all showing as unserved because you've got, you look at a particular location and it's showing you what they have here, 35 by 35, 25 by 3. So these are satellite only in some of these places. And let's see, I think I'm looking at the address here. The New York one's not quite as clear. So anyway, so you can see the difference. Got lots of orange. I've got some that are considered underserved, this color right here. I don't have any that are considered served. If you look at their legend, served is a dark dot. This is underserved, and this is unserved. And really, the national broadband map should do the same thing. The national broadband map should have 3 levels. Right now, they've just got 2. They've got unserved and served, right? So unserved, for the purposes of the BEAD program, which is why this map was being developed, this and future federal programs, I'm sure, if there are any, after this, I don't know, but the whole point of this was to see who is unserved, and that's anybody that's less than 25 by 3. And then underserved is anybody that's less than 100 by 20 and over 25 by 3, so kind of in that next tier up. So they should have that underserved on here as well, just so people can say, well, am I unserved, underserved, or am I served? Well, if you look at this national map, when you pull it up, and let's say you pull up your address, and I pulled up the town of Benson, so it's just identifying that right here. But if I click on any homes around here, when I click on a home, it's showing as served. You see a nice green dot here. So I should say a green dot here and a nice green served here. But as I look at this, I've got basically 115 by 7 on what's copper or DSL service. Then I've got geosynchronous satellite from Hughes. I've got, I don't know what the N stands for. This is basically low Earth orbit satellite from SpaceX. Maybe that's near, I don't know what that, near Earth geosynchronous, I don't know. Then you've got another geosynchronous satellite here from Viasat. So Starlink's got the best service. And believe me, if somebody in this area has access to Starlink, they're probably happy. Now it's expensive compared to some other places around the country that could maybe get fiber for, let's say, $60, $80 a month. If there's competition, here you've got satellite. It's going to be more expensive. I think it might be $100 a month now. But again, if you've been suffering through, let's say, DSL service, and this isn't as bad as some areas. A lot of areas are more like the 20 megabits per second DSL. If you've been suffering through that and having issues, you might be happy that you've got Starlink overhead, but you'd prefer to have fiber, for example, to be able to get really fast speeds and not as expensive because you're not having to maintain a satellite constellation. And the equipment's less expensive, those kinds of things. But, just to be fair, for people throughout the country that now Starlink is available, they're really happy for right now because they've been suffering through having no internet, and then suddenly, bam, they've got this satellite service that can connect. Now it's got its, there are various issues, and the speeds kind of, they can change as more customers come online. And also, I think Starlink's announced that if you use over a terabyte of data per month, then you start to get throttled. Now that's a lot of data, but again, there's that. And a lot of other providers doing the same kind of thing. If you're going to use like a terabyte of data, they might do that. So again, satellite, good if that's your only solution, let's say from Starlink. Certainly much better than these ones that are geosynchronous. But this should be unserved according to the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity. The Notice of Funding Opportunity says, reliable broadband service. The term reliable broadband service means broadband service that the broadband data maps, and that would be this map that we're looking at. This is the preliminary version. That broadband data maps show is accessible to a location via fiber optic technology, cable modem, or HFC coax plant, DSL technology, or terrestrial fixed wireless technology utilizing entirely licensed spectrum or using a hybrid of licensed and unlicensed spectrum. And it says, for services using entirely unlicensed spectrum or technology not specified by the Commission for purposes of the broadband data maps do not meet the criteria for reliable broadband service. It doesn't specifically mention satellite, but satellite is not mentioned here as reliable. Now, what is mentioned is, surprisingly, digital subscriber line, DSL technology. So maybe I need to find an area that's satellite only. I think I did find an area that was satellite only, and it was still showing up as served. But here you see you do have Frontier saying that they're providing 115 by 7, but you may have customers that say, you know what, I'm not getting that. So I was going to look, let me click around in here and see if I can find. All right, so here's an area. This is a good example. This area is still showing as served, and there's no DSL service, and there's no fixed wireless service. So basically, you've just got satellite. You've got Hughes, then you've got, again, SpaceX with, again, what they're advertising is fairly decent speeds. Whether people actually get this, I don't know. But they should be able to get over 100 or somewhere near 100, maybe 10 up. In a lot of areas, that's what's being reported. Or it could be that they've just got good satellite bandwidth up there, that maybe in this particular area they can actually get close to that. But in any event, it should not be served based on the NOFO. So this is kind of misleading when somebody goes in here, because according to, again, the NOFO, satellite is not considered reliable broadband service, and if it's not reliable broadband service, it's considered unserved. And in this case, we don't even have DSL service or fixed wireless, so this is definitely just satellite here that's available. The other reason this is kind of misleading is as I zoom out, the little polygons that fill in, you can see they're all nice and blue, but if you hover over this here, it says 100% coverage. So again, it's acting as if there's 100% coverage here when all of these areas really that I'm looking at here are unserved. So that is a problem with this map. So one problem is it defaults to settings that are making everything seem served. And then also there's no unserved choice. So if I go in here, here's where your settings are. So if you want to look at your area and you're going, wait a minute, it's saying I'm served, but I only have satellite, you can go in here on the settings and you have some choices. Now you can't select multiple things, unfortunately, but you can select wireless. Let me see in here, can I do wireless? There we go. I can select wireless, and you see there's, if you look down here, there's no wireless, so it's showing unserved. I can select all wired, and this is where it's going to show unserved as well because there's no wired service. Let me go back to an area over here. Okay, so here I've got Frontier. So let's see what happens when I go in and I say all wired. So it's still showing as unserved with all wired, which is interesting. Why is that? Because I've got 115 by 7. Now this is copper, so this is a wired service. So maybe it means that not served is anything that's underserved or unserved. In other words, less than 120 by 10. Is that right? 120, or excuse me, yeah, 120 by 10. So it's 115 by 7, so it's over 25 by 3, but it's less than 120 by 10, so it's considered not served. So in other words, underserved or it's unserved. So maybe that's what that means, because this is definitely wired, and I selected all wired right here. Oh, wait a minute, I've got 100 by 20 here selected, so that's why. So I could do this. See, this is kind of crazy. I could do that. So now I've got all wired, and I've got 10 by 1, and it still shows up as served. So this is kind of crazy. They really should adjust this on the next version of the map maybe, or maybe even between getting the next version of the map out. They should really make this served mean what the bead NOFO says. And again, they should add an underserved category. So I can make it served or unserved depending on what I select here. If I select gig, then it's going to be not served. And it would be not served even if I had close to a gig. If it was under a gig, it would be not served. So that doesn't make any sense. But I'll leave it here at 100 by 20. So that's why it's showing as not served. So now, it's anything less than, is it less than? See, in my days in math, I thought that was greater than or equal to 100 by 20. So maybe they have that backwards, or maybe it's wrong. Maybe it's backwards in my mind. I would have swore the way I would read that would be greater than or equal to 100 by 20. But in any event, now as I zoom out on this map, now you will see it's changed because everything's red. And as I zoom out and get the polygons, you're seeing the polygons are gray now. So when I hover over those, it's showing 0% coverage. Because according to the parameters I set over here, now everything is not served. So from the perspective of the consumer, that's how you can kind of get an idea, I guess, of what your area is like. And you can see the way New York is here. You've got these areas here that are showing 100% coverage. And you've got these here, all in here, that are showing 0% coverage. So if I zoom back in, actually I'm going to scroll over here, zoom in, zooming in further. So now I'm on this road here, and you see everything's unserved, 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 and I get over to this area, where I was seeing some of those areas that were served. Where is that? That's right about, where is it? It's way over here. Wow. Why is that? What have I got selected? Oh, here we go. All right, so here I get to this area. So I've got a home right here. So something changes. So I've got a home right here. And I've still got Frontier, copper, in this case, only a 10 by 1. And I've got I've got satellite. I've got T-Mobile thrown in there now, but apparently not very fast, probably not 5G service. So I've got 0.2 by 0.2 and my satellite. And I've got copper, again, DSL at 10 by 1. So a lot of times this is what you'll see when you have DSL. So that's right here. So this is the borderline right here between good internet and bad internet. So I click right here, and what do I have? Now I've got Charter coming in there. Charter is a cable operator, and they are 1 gig by 35 as their max speed that they're advertising. Now, what is it really? Is it really 1 gig by 35? Well, cable operators tend to actually increase. They will actually give you a buffer, and if they say they're giving you a gig, they try to give you like a certain percentage over that to try to get close to that. So But it still could be, when you do a speed test, it might be 800, 750, 900, somewhere in there. But I'm sure it's very fast. And again, this is not one that you should be questioning as far as am I served or not in this case, if you've got access to this. Then you've got, again, these same operators here. So now this is considered served. And as I click around in here, I'm sure it's all going to be the same. This is just where Charter has run their cable plant to. And they've stopped right here. And they could be in the process of trying to extend these homes. We don't know. They may have announced that they're going to do that. They may not. But certainly there's an opportunity here because there's not that much more. I mean, all of these areas tend to be, you got more customers here kind of clustered together. Now here again, you've got another area where you've got a red dot. And I click on that. Again, I've got very slow Frontier DSL. And I've got my satellite options right there, but unserved because of the way that I have my settings set. So now I can take a look, and it's a little bit easier to look at this map. So again, going back to where I was in Benson, let me get back to that so I can look at the New York map. So this is, what road is that? That's right where North Road is. So right here, North Road. So again, this is what I'm looking at on the FCC map. And I was comparing kind of to the New York map because I was mentioning that the New York map, they challenged 31,000 locations. And I have a question as to whether those challenges are appearing on here, because a lot of people are talking about, oh, we need to start doing bulk challenges. But bulk challenges have already been submitted to the fabric by service providers, internet service providers, as well as others that had access to the fabric, which would be government entities. So your cities, towns, states, tribal entities, tribal governments were able to do bulk challenges. Now consumers can do their individual challenges, and other stakeholders, other kinds of groups, community groups can now get access to the fabric and do challenges. But the question is, are the initial challenges on here? So in other words, the 31,000 challenges that New York sent in, are they on this map? Actually, when I say this map, I mean this map, not that map. Are they on the FCC map, which is this map, or this one drilled in? Are they on here? I don't think so. My understanding was that the fabric was, the fabric is only containing the challenges of, the fabric that is making this map does not contain the challenges that have been done. It contains the data that was uploaded by the internet service providers as far as where they cover and the speeds, but I don't think it covers the challenges. I'm not totally certain on that. I'm sure that will come out at some point, but I don't think it does. So it's very possible that a consumer could challenge, they could see that their house is not on here, and they could say, wait a minute, my house is not on here, and it could be that the internet service provider challenged it already, or the community challenged it already. And it could mean that, bulk challenges that are now going to be done might be redundant. So somebody could look and say, wait a minute, there's a whole neighborhood missing here, and somebody might have already taken care of that bulk challenge. I don't know. I just don't think the challenges are on this, are reflected in this map, because that's what originally was said, was that this map would be the original fabric that was done. There would be challenges made to it. The map would come out, and then a new fabric would come out that would contain the challenges, and then the next map comes out. And that new fabric comes out, I think, early next year, maybe January 1st or very early in January. So I was going to look at the New York map here because, again, this is the FCC map, and I just happened to notice when I was looking at this area, this is the New York map. So if you look here, let's take this area right here. So we've got this long driveway right here, and we've got a home here, and you're looking at the same thing here on this map. Can I zoom in a little bit, make it more like that? So again, you got a long driveway, and you've got a home here, then you got a home here, and you got a home here. Or I should say a point where they say there's broadband, but you don't see that on the FCC map. So who's right? Is New York right? Or is is CostQuest right as far as the fabric? Well, let's take a look at the satellite. I don't know if we can tell from here, but let's turn the satellite on. Let's see what we have here. So, well, that's interesting. Satellite on this one. I haven't done this yet. Satellite, here it is. Satellite down here. Let me take a look at this. Am I looking at the same place? Turn satellite off, streets, light. Somehow things got moved around. I go back where I was. Benson. New York, United States. I want to get back to the same location. That was kind of strange. So here we are. Here is this road here. So now let me turn the satellite on and see what happens. Satellite, there we go. Okay. So again, on the FCC map, I see nothing here except this home. Zoom in a little bit more. On the New York map, I see this home and I see two other dots. Zoom in a little bit more there. So according to the New York map, and I'm only going to be able to go in so far, there is a location that should have broadband right here in the woods and one right here. And I guess it's possible that this is a road here that we can't see. So I don't know. But this is an example of where you've got two locations. This one right here, if I can click on it, it's got 129 North Road unserved. So it's showing an address. 113 North Road. So it's very possible if there's a road running here through the woods that is not identified somewhere in here on the FCC map. And, again, what CostQuest did was they took data from various places, including tax records, I think maybe census data, and then they combined whatever they could. And from that, they also looked at satellite imagery, and then they tried to identify where these different structures are that are supposed to have broadband. So looking at the FCC map here, for example, as I drill in, for some reason, this has a dot and this does not. This could be a garage. This could be the home here. You look here, there's dots here and here, but these do not have dots. They may have identified these. And when I say they, actually probably they're AI, because they could not look at every single structure in the United States. So what they did was they tried to train their software by them going in and looking at records probably, and looking at roof structures and deciding where a dot should be placed. They tried to teach their software to do that through the rest of the country. So that's where there are going to be some issues here. So are they supposed to have broadband or not? I don't know. So if you look at the New York map in that particular area, let's see, let me go back to this. That's this area here. So they've got just one dot right here, and that's showing as served. Underserved. Actually, underserved. It's showing as underserved. And then right here, they've got the same two dots, it looks like. Yep. So New York's got the same two right there, and they've got one there, obviously. That makes sense. So from that perspective, it looks pretty accurate there. So I don't know about these two locations here in the woods on New York. So that could be an example of some areas where New York State said, you know what, you guys missed these two locations. I don't know if the 31,000 locations are issues like that, or if there may be missing neighborhoods. I think in most cases, where they're finding the issues with the fabric is in these kind of rural areas where it's going to be much harder to identify. It's not like a neighborhood where you've got single family homes all clustered together, very easy to see the structures. They're not buried in the middle of the woods, that kind of thing. So in any event, what I wanted to show you today was these particular filters. So I think this is important to know, your filters right here as you look at these. So again, if you're looking at your home, what I would suggest is looking at all wired, and then you can select the speed maybe right there to give you kind of an area or an idea of the area and what it looks like. Now, the other thing that's unfortunate is something else as far as whether something is reliable broadband or not is what type of fixed wireless it is. So if it is unlicensed fixed wireless, it's not considered reliable broadband. If it's licensed fixed wireless, it is considered reliable broadband. And if it's a hybrid of fixed wireless, it's considered reliable broadband. So in other words, I should say a hybrid of licensed and unlicensed. And I'm not sure why. But if you have both licensed and unlicensed spectrum in an area, then that is considered reliable broadband. But you can't check one or the other. And in fact, you can't even check, like I can put all wired, And I could put all fixed wireless, but I can't see all wired and all fixed wireless. I can't select certain things. I can only do that. I can do copper, I can do cable. I got cable and I've got fiber, so I can do fiber. So obviously if I do fiber in these areas, it's going to be considered unserved. And in fact, if I went back to that area where I was showing, see if I can find that real quick. Oops, if I go in here, if I go back to this area that I was looking at before, let me get off of this satellite, it's confusing. Back to streets. So let's make that change and see what it looks like. So I'm going to follow the road here and go back to my area where it changes. This is interesting. Let's look at this first. And this is probably based on, maybe this is based on what my settings are. So what do I have here? I've got fiber, and I've got greater than or equal to 100 by 20. Well, let's see what's showing up here. This is showing as served. I've got charter, fiber. So this home is saying as charter, fiber. This home, charter, cable. Interesting. This home, charter, cable. So for some reason, this one, because the fact that I selected fiber, this one home has fiber. It's certainly possible because the way that cable operators are extending their plant now, they're going fiber deep, and then they do the last mile as cable, or coax, I should say, hybrid fiber coax. So it's very possible that maybe this was a home that was new, and rather than going to the home with coax, they said, well, let's go and do fiber to the home. It's not like they need to rip out their coax and change out technology. They're just going to put in something brand new. So that's very possible that that's what some of these locations are. Again, here I've got, this is got charter cable, and this has got charter fiber. So these homes here have charter fiber. So you can see Charter's doing, again, probably some greenfield deployments of fiber right there on these. The other thing, I'm glad I thought of that right now. So the other thing I wanted to show, because I was seeing here, you see residential. So the other thing you can filter by is business, but this is kind of useless. So let's see, where it is. So if I go here and I say business, let's see what happens. That's interesting. So it did change these all to not serve. So these are all flagged as residential. Let's go back to here. Change that again. So they changed to some of these changed to served as I do that. Let's look at these and see if anything changes. I'm going to go to business. And all of these are changing to unserved because this is not classified as a business. Now, I was noticing earlier when I was down here, back in this world of Benson, let's go ahead and change this to, change my settings to any technology. So now these are all showing as served, showing as residential, unit count 1. Let me change here to, okay. So it's still set as business. So you'll notice these are all showing as served, and yet it's set as business. Let me scroll back over this way. Well, that's interesting. I don't know why, because all I changed, you're seeing this as I'm going through it, because all I changed, so these are business, set to business, and if I go into, let's go to fiber, and they change to, that one changes to unserved, and these all change to unserved as well. I don't know why, because like I say, down here, I'm not sure why that makes a difference. So down here, if I go to, back to Benson, lost where I was. I go down here and I change to any technology again. So this is showing residential, but yet I've got my filter as business. Residential. business. And I don't know if that's because when the service provider can upload their data, they have three choices basically. They can do an R for residential, they can do a B for business, or they can do an X, which means it could be either. And when I was looking at some of the data from the that you can download from here, I noticed that a lot of operators put the X because they probably are saying, you know, it doesn't matter if it could be a small office, a SOHO kind of thing, small office, home office. So it could be business or it could be residential, and they probably didn't want to have to differentiate between their business customers. You know, if they're in the middle of a town and it's the local restaurant, something like that, then maybe they were able to do that. But on some of these, I have a feeling they were just putting X's, so it might show up either way. But it's interesting that for some reason, when I was changing it, changing the fiber part of it, it showed up as unserved, even if it was fiber and it was business. So if I selected, what I mean is I've selected in the area of town where it was fiber, I could select fiber and I could select business, and they had fiber and it was not a business and it showed up as unserved. But yet if I have any technology and I select business, it shows up as served. So can't explain that. I didn't realize that was going to happen. So anyway, I think this filter will help a lot. It really helped clarify things for me. And really what it should be set for would be, I would say, all wired and maybe 100 by 20 to give you the best picture. So then as you're looking at areas, just as I kind of scroll through the areas, it gives you an idea of where boundaries are, of where the internet maybe gets a little bit better. And you get to a point where it's like, okay, things are starting to look, and then you have to go, and again, I have to take off business now and go residential. And for some reason, that makes a difference when I have that selected. So it gives me this look here, and I can see, okay, where's red, where's green? I don't have a yellow or an underserved. I probably should. They should probably fix the map to make those definitions match with what's in the bead, because that's the reason that this map is developed. And they should just have a definition in here that should say, it should say something like what the speeds are, and it should say underserved. Anything less than that is underserved. Anything less than this is unserved. And then, of course, all of that's unserved as well. Anything above here would be served. So I would suggest they make that change. And again, as I'm here and I start to zoom out, this is an area where I've got kind of a mixture. As I start to zoom out of the map, it should now reflect my blue areas that are served. These are the ones that were green that I was just looking at. And these are the areas that, when I hover over them, are 100% unserved. And then these are, what is that saying? That's saying 66.7% coverage in this polygon. So let me zoom in that real quick and see what that area looks like. So this poor soul here, let's take a look at that. See, they've got apparently nothing except satellite, whereas these folks have got Charter. So this is most likely, if this is correct, and I'm going to put the satellite on here, this is most likely a long driveway issue. It doesn't look that long, but let's see. It is, or maybe it's, this is interesting. So this looks like a business, actually. So I'm not sure why this would be the case. So, here you've got a home. This is as a green dot. So this could be a fabric and issue, or maybe not a fabric issue, but this could be the service provider that didn't put their information in correctly, would be my guess. Because here I've got a home that's served by Charter. So I'm thinking Charter said, yeah, we serve this home. And unless Charter does not serve this building, you know what? Let me change this. Maybe this is it. Let me go to business. See if that changes that. Yeah, okay. So it's right here. Look at that. That's cool. Okay, so when I change this to business, this home changed to unserved, but this location, which looks like a business, changed to served. So that explains that. That actually is the way I would expect it to work, but it was not working that way on lots of parts of the map that I was looking at. So here we are. We've got served on this business, unserved on this home. And if I go in and I change my filters to, I'm going to go back to residential. There we go. And close that. So now this is showing unserved because it's a business, or not served. It really is served. It's just not a residential that's being served. And then you've got this, who knows what that is, whether that's supposed to have broadband. And then I'm going to scroll out here, go out, put on my streets as I go out here. So again, this area, it's showing as 66.67% coverage, and I'm not sure why. Maybe it's because it's encompassing some of this red here, but it's not. So can't explain why, because it's the only thing is, again, this is kind of misleading, because here's one business that's actually served amongst these other homes that are served. This business really is served. Okay, it's got service of some kind. Maybe it's, let's see, residential. Let me go to back to here and see if it shows what they have. It shows served. Maybe because, let me go to, it's all wired. Let me go to cable fiber. I'll go to cable fiber. So cable fiber, it shows served as a business, but notice that cable and fiber is not showing up here. So this is another little issue with the map, because even though I'm showing it served now and I'm on a business, it's not showing who's serving it, but I'm sure it's Charter, because Charter's got the homes all along the street, and I'm sure they're serving this business, but Charter is not showing up here, but yet it is showing up as cable fiber. So for some reason, Charter's not showing up down here as, well, wait a minute, I take it back. Okay, learning the map as I go here. So residential business, I was missing that. So here's business, and now I do have Charter cable. So it does seem to be working in that way. So if I go out, now I'm looking at business, 33.33% coverage, but yet that's the only business, I think, in that area, at least in this little area that looks like the polygon. If I go to residential and I zoom out, it's the same. Zoom in. Thanks for hanging with me as I explore this. I've got residential selected now, and it's still showing as served. So while it worked a minute ago, it's not working now, because it's showing as served, but I've got residential selected. These are showing as unserved. Because I'll get cable fiber. And certainly this home has Charter, and it's 1 gig by 35, and I have my filters. I've got business selected. Let me go to residential. There we go. Okay, so now that's working. So I've got residential selected, so now that's working. And if I look at business, it does show me what I have available to the business. But again, Charter's not showing up whether I select that or not, because I've got all wired selected. No, I don't. I go to all wired. Same thing. So I'm showing all wired, and it's still the same. Again, this is a business, so it's unserved. So that's a little confusing. And now I've got residential selected here. I've got residential here. I've got all wired. I zoom out. I don't know why this is showing me a 66.67% coverage, unless that has to do with the fact that there's one business there that's showing up as unserved, but it is served, apparently, because it shows up as served when I select the business. So that doesn't seem to be making sense. So they got a few things they need to fix. Hopefully they'll get feedback from folks that are looking at this to help them fix that. But overall, I'm glad that I can see that I can filter things now. But again, my recommendations would be to look at stuff like that, but also come up with the 3 levels: served, underserved, served, unserved, and underserved, and default it to the bead definitions, which would be, I would default to unserved, actually. I would default to unserved and let people change it to either underserved or served to see what's on the map. Well, we don't have to filter that, but basically that would be how those would show up. So if it was unserved, maybe it could be red. If it was underserved, it could be yellow. And if it was served, it could be green. And somebody mentioned, I was on a Mapping Coalition meeting the other day, somebody mentioned that these colors are not really great for people that are colorblind. In fact, they're really bad, because somebody who's colorblind would look at this map and everything would look the same. So there are applications. In fact, we've got one of our applications, our PNM, DOCSIS PNM tool. You can actually go in and adjust the map pin colors if you're colorblind. So you can say, wait a minute, I'm colorblind. or have a problem differentiating between green and red, and they can change the colors of the map flags on an individual basis. A person can do that. So they should be able to add that to this map where people can change the color so that it's not green or red. If they want to see it in other colors or other shades that would be easier for them to differentiate, that is another thing that they could add to this map to make that a little more user-friendly, because there's a lot of people, there's a good percentage of people in the United States that are colorblind where this would not work, and or not be really useful for them as far as the colors. They can still look at the data. So that would be another recommendation I would make. All right, well, thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, if you would, click the subscribe button, click the little bell to be notified when you're live. And I'll be live tomorrow for Broadband Deployment News. See you then. Bye-bye.